Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast. I am your host, and it is a profound privilege to welcome you back to our quiet, observant corner of the maritime world. Whether you are listening to this while walking along a windswept, pebble-strewn beach, pulling your coat tight against the evening chill, or perhaps sitting indoors, listening to the muffled, rhythmic drumming of rain against the roof, I invite you to pause. Take a deep, slow breath. Let the tension in your shoulders melt away and allow the relentless, demanding pace of our modern, hyper-connected lives to simply fade into the background. Here, in this auditory sanctuary, we do not measure our time by the frantic alerts of a glowing screen. Instead, we measure it by the ancient, eternal pulse of the tides. We gather to track the meticulous, patient engineering of Kalopa robotics and to marvel at the vast, complex and deeply poetic expanse of our blue planet. The ocean has always been a space of profound mystery, a vast frontier that, for much of human history, was considered too immense to govern and too boundless to break. For centuries, the waters lying beyond the nautical borders of any single nation were ruled by a concept known as the freedom of the high seas. In practice, this freedom often translated into a tragic freedom to exploit. It was a realm where industrial fleets could cast their nets without oversight and where the deep, silent seabed was left vulnerable to the highest bidder. But earlier this year, the global community crossed a monumental historic threshold. On January 17, 2026, the High Seas Treaty, formerly known as the Agreement on Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, officially entered into force. It is difficult to overstate the magnitude of this achievement. After more than 2 decades of painstaking, often frustrating diplomatic negotiations, 88 nations have ratified a legally binding framework to conserve and sustainably manage the marine biology of the high seas. This treaty covers roughly 2/3 of the world's ocean. It provides, for the very first time, a mechanism to establish sprawling marine protected areas in international waters, and it mandates rigorous environmental impact assessments for new activities, such as deep-sea mining. It represents a profound philosophical shift. We are finally moving away from viewing the open ocean as an infinite, inexhaustible warehouse of resources and beginning to recognize it as the fragile, shared life support system of our planet. It is a moment of genuine, cautious hope. Yet, while international treaties provide the vital architecture for conservation, the true messy reality of protecting the ocean always plays out on the water and within the communities whose lives are inextricably bound to the sea. Consider the beautiful, vibrant coastline of Ghana. Just recently, on April 14th, the Ghanaian government officially declared the Greater Cape 3 Points Marine Protected Area. Covering just over 700 square kilometres of coastal waters in the western region, it is the country's first ever formally designated marine sanctuary. This area is a globally recognised biodiversity hotspot. Its nutrient-rich upwelling waters serve as critical breeding and nursery grounds for small pelagic fish, species like sardines, anchovies and mackerel. In Ghana, these are affectionately known as the people's fish. They are the absolute backbone of local diets, providing an affordable, vital source of protein. But over the past 2 decades, Ghana has witnessed a heartbreaking 71% decline in its sardinella catch. The pressures of industrial overfishing, illegal fishing practices, and a warming climate have pushed these vital stocks to the brink of collapse. This is not merely an ecological crisis, it is a profoundly human one. A collapse of the fishery threatens the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of people, particularly the women who traditionally process, smoke, and trade the catch. The new sanctuary at Cape 3 Points is a desperate, beautiful attempt to reverse this tide. It is designed not as an impenetrable fortress, but as a space of coexistence. It features strictly protected, no-take, core zones where fish can spawn and grow in absolute peace, surrounded by multiple use zones where sustainable artisanal fishing is permitted. Crucially, the sanctuary will be co-managed by the 21 coastal communities that surround it. Their ancestral knowledge and daily presence are the most powerful tools for ensuring that this protection exists in practice and not just on paper. However, as we establish these sanctuaries, we are continually reminded that marine ecosystems face threats that are deeply woven into the fabric of our modern urbanized world. When we think of threats to the ocean, we typically picture massive factory trawlers or oil spills. We rarely think of the buildings we live in or the roads we drive on. Yet, a new report published by the United Nations Environment Programme has highlighted a severe escalating crisis driven by the global demand for a surprisingly humble resource: sand. Nature requires hundreds of thousands of years of slow geological erosion to create sand. Today, human society is extracting it at a staggering violent rate of 50 billion tonnes every single year. It is the most exploited natural resource in the world after water, used to manufacture everything from concrete and asphalt to the glass in our windows. The report, titled Sand and Sustainability, draws a stark distinction between dead sand and alive sand. Once sand is extracted and locked into the concrete of a city skyscraper, it is effectively dead to the natural world. But when sand is left alive in our rivers, deltas and coastal zones, it performs miraculous, essential work. It filters our water, it provides critical habitat for crabs, turtles and shorebirds, and it serves as our primary natural defence against storm surges and rising sea levels. Frighteningly, as land-based sand resources are depleted, the construction industry is increasingly turning to marine dredging. Data from the United Nations shows that approximately half of all dredging companies are currently operating within marine protected areas. They are literally vacuuming up the seabed inside the very zones we have set aside for conservation. We cannot safeguard the ocean if we are systematically mining the very foundations of its ecosystems. The report is an urgent call for governments to recognise sand as a strategic, vital asset and to completely halt the extraction of this precious material from our marine sanctuaries. When we strip away the seabed, we risk erasing ancient histories that we are only just beginning to understand. The deep ocean operates on timescales that humble the human imagination. In the remote, dark waters of the Galápagos archipelago, a team of international scientists recently made a fascinating discovery. Using remotely operated vehicles, they collected fossilized deep-sea stony corals from depths of up to 1,000 meters. By carefully dating these fossils, they reconstructed a detailed 117,000-year history of the deep water reef. What they found is a testament to both the fragility and the immense resilience of the sea. Around 5,000 years ago, these deep-sea corals completely vanished from the geological record for over a millennium. The researchers believe this catastrophic collapse was triggered by a prolonged La Niña climate phase. Stronger ocean circulation brought deep, nutrient-rich water to the surface, which paradoxically led to severely depleted oxygen levels in the deep ocean, effectively suffocating the coral ecosystem. But the most remarkable part of the story is that after 1,000 years of darkness and absence, the corals slowly, quietly returned. They re-established their intricate, pale skeletons in the abyss, proving that recovery is possible, even after a total ecological collapse. However, this recovery operates on a timescale of centuries. As our modern climate warms and ocean currents shift once again, we are placing these ancient, slow-growing ecosystems under immense stress. We do not have 1,000 years to wait for them to recover. It underscores exactly why the protection of the deep sea floor, whether through the new High Seas Treaty or strictly enforced national marine parks, is so desperately urgent. The challenge that connects the High Seas Treaty, the new sanctuary in Ghana, the threat of sand dredging and the ancient corals of the Galapagos is the immense difficulty of monitoring and enforcing protection in the marine environment. The ocean is vast, it is hostile, and it effortlessly conceals the activities that take place upon it. This brings us to the very heart of what we do here at Kalopa Robotics. If you were to step through the heavy acoustic doors of our mission control room today, you would find the space bathed in a quiet ambient glow. The primary telemetry screens, usually scrolling with live satellite data, are currently in standby mode. We have no active missions at sea right now. Our fleet of 2.4-meter autonomous sailboats is resting in the engineering workshop. The boats smell faintly of dried salt and marine epoxy. Their bright yellow hulls are being meticulously inspected, their rigid wing sails detached and calibrated, and their solar arrays polished. While our fleet is safely in dry dock, it grants us a rare, quiet moment to reflect on the lineage of these remarkable machines and the vibrant, slightly mad community of engineers that helped bring this technology to life. When you look at our 2.4 metre boats, you are looking at the proud descendants of the Microtransat Challenge. For those who might be new to the podcast, the Microtransat Challenge is a transatlantic race for fully autonomous boats under 4 metres in length. It was conceived over a decade ago by visionary academics who believed that friendly, unforgiving competition was the best way to stimulate the development of maritime robotics. In previous episodes, we have discussed the navigational algorithms and the redundant sensor networks born from this race. But today, I want to reflect on the sheer physical endurance required to survive the open ocean and the philosophical shift that the Microtransat represents. Sending a machine that is shorter than a family car out into the North Atlantic is an act of profound engineering audacity. The ocean is an incredibly violent, corrosive environment. It is constantly trying to dismantle whatever we put into it. During the early years of the Microtransat, the ocean won, repeatedly. Boats were relentlessly pounded by breaking waves until their carbon fibre hulls fractured. Saltwater, driven by gale force winds, found its way through microscopic imperfections in waterproof seals, instantly short-circuiting the delicate navigation brains inside. Marine growth, barnacles, algae and gooseneck barnacles would bloom across the hulls and rudders, adding so much drag that the tiny boats were eventually paralysed, left adrift helplessly in the vastness of the sea. But the community of university students and amateur engineers refused to yield. Every lost boat, every final dying ping sent to an Iridium satellite was a vital data point. Through years of heartbreak and collective innovation, the community learned to build differently. We learned how to design completely self-righting hulls, boats that can be rolled 360 degrees by a rogue wave and instantly pop back upright, shedding water like a seabird. We learned how to encapsulate delicate electronics in solid blocks of resin, rendering them entirely immune to water ingress. We learned to coat our underwater appendages in advanced non-toxic anti-fouling materials that prevent the ocean from claiming the vessel as an artificial reef. The Kalopa vessels sitting in our workshop today are the direct beneficiaries of that brutal, magnificent crucible. They are no longer just academic experiments or racing toys. They have evolved into hardened, tireless tools perfectly adapted for the modern era of ocean conservation. Think back to the challenges we've explored today. Imagine a fleet of Kalopa boats deployed to the newly protected waters of the high seas. Powered entirely by the wind and the sun, they could remain on station for 6, 9 or even 12 months at a time. They could patrol the boundaries of these new international sanctuaries using their onboard radar and AIS receivers to detect the presence of distant water fishing fleets operating illegally in the dark. Imagine our tiny silent vessels sailing back and forth across the Greater Cape 3-Point Sanctuary in Ghana. Carrying advanced acoustic echo sounders, they could map the biomass of the sardinella and mackerel populations beneath the surface, providing local community managers with the precise real-time data they need to set sustainable fishing quotas and ensure the people's fish return in abundance. Or imagine them deployed to monitor the world's most vulnerable marine protected areas, programmed to listen for the distinct, heavy, grinding acoustic signature of illegal sand dredgers tearing up the seabed, instantly beaming an alert to local coast guards. These robotic sailboats cannot replace the passion of human conservationists, the traditional knowledge of local fishers, or the courage of policymakers. But they can act as their tireless eyes and ears. They are the technological bridge that will allow us to actually enforce the promises we have made to the blue planet. To build a machine capable of surviving the open ocean requires a deep, abiding respect for its power. You do not conquer the sea with a 2.4 metre boat. You learn to dance with it. You learn to harness the wind that drives the waves and the sun that beats down upon the deck. Our engineers spend their days obsessing over the friction of a rudder bearing, the efficiency of a solar charge controller, and the watertight integrity of a composite hatch. It is slow, demanding, and deeply meticulous work, but it is driven by a profound sense of purpose. The ocean is the life support system of our world. It regulates the climate we live in, it provides the food that sustains billions, and it houses ancient, miraculous ecosystems in its dark, silent depths. As the threats against it multiply, from the relentless extraction of its sand to the warming of its currents, we must evolve our methods of protection. So, while our workshop remains quiet today, the work is far from paused. We are refining our code, we are testing our weather seals, and we are preparing. Because when the time comes to launch our next vessel, we know that it carries more than just microchips and batteries. It carries our collective commitment to watch over the waters that sustain us all. Thank you for sharing this time with me today. If you have enjoyed our exploration of marine conservation and the robotic technology we build to support it, please consider subscribing to the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast on your favourite platform. And if you know someone who feels that same inescapable pull toward the sea, I would be deeply grateful if you shared this episode with them. Until we meet again, may your horizons be clear, the wind be fair, and the seas be kind. Goodbye for now. Summary. In episode 13 of the Kalopa Mission Control Podcast, we explore the monumental shifts in global ocean conservation and the enduring resilience of marine ecosystems. We discuss the historic entry into force of the High Seas Treaty and celebrate Ghana's first ever marine protected area at Cape 3 Points, designed to save the vital pelagic fish populations local communities rely on. We also examine the escalating global sand dredging crisis threatening coastal habitats and marvel at the discovery of ancient deep-sea corals in the Galápagos that recovered after a 1,000-year absence. Finally, with no active Kalopa missions currently at sea, we reflect on the brutal, magnificent history of the Microtransat challenge. We explore how the physical trials of this transatlantic race forged the robust, self-righting, autonomous sailboats we use today to silently monitor and protect our fragile blue planet.